It's my pleasure to introduce Chris Larkins. Chris participated this past June in the Washington Youth Tour as a delegate from Jackson EMC. He was chosen by the other students on the tour in the state of Georgia to represent Georgia at the NRECA Youth Leadership Council. In July, Chris returned to Washington, joining youth representing 43 other states at the NRECA 2015 Youth Leadership Conference. Chris was also represented the youth of Georgia EMCs in February, or will represent us at the NRECA annual meeting in New Orleans, and we look forward to having him return to speak to the 2016 Washington Youth Tour delegates in June. Chris is the son of Alan and Roseanne Larkin, which we've already introduced. He is the youngest of 4 children with 3 older sisters, all of whom attended Georgia Tech. A senior at Decula High School, he has a passion for the band, swimming, and soccer. Chris is the first lieutenant of his high school marching band, captain of the swim team, a state swimmer, a member of the varsity soccer team. In addition, he serves as president of his senior class in the National Honor Society, promoting service in local community. Through a passion for innovation, Chris created a model United Nations program at his high school to educate students on foreign policy and cultures. He also organized the second high school TDX event ever held in the state of Georgia. Please join me in welcoming Chris Larkins.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to go ahead and thank Georgia EMC for allowing me to speak today on behalf of the Washington Youth Tour, and Jackson EMC for sponsoring my trip this past summer, and then once again for Mr. Harrell and the rest of the veterans in this room for serving our nation. Thank you very much. So now, imagine walking into the airport in 2015 and seeing some of the most recognizable faces in the history of America, all waiting to board a plane. You see Abraham Lincoln trying to stuff a top hat into his carry-on. You see Martin Luther King Jr. telling a stranger about his glorious dream last night. And you see George Washington staring intently at the front of a $1 bill. You notice that these great leaders from all different time periods, backgrounds, and cultures had the leadership abilities to change the course of a whole nation. And you see them delightedly coexisting together in 2015. But there is one twist. These recognizable faces in the airport are not in their prime, but at the age of 17, getting ready to graduate from high school. As you look at Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, and George Washington, you realize that although they look merely innocent and inexperienced, they're just a few years away from turning into some of the most brilliant, influential, and respectable people throughout the entirety of the United States of America. You realize that within a few years, the names of these hometown teenagers will be recognized in every household, neighborhood, and electric cooperative throughout the entirety of the nation. This past summer, I witnessed a similar scene as a Georgia delegate on the 2015 Washington Youth Tour. As my experience began, I was not overwhelmed, but astounded to see 110 new faces sprung from every part of Georgia. We started asking questions to each other like, where are you from? What activities do you enjoy? And why is your accent so weird? Just after talking to each other for a few minutes, we started to tell each other stories from our past and our passions for our future. Later, when we arrived in Washington, D.C., we enjoyed meals together as we toured the remarkable monuments. We noticed the sacrifice of American soldiers at the World War II, Vietnam, and Korean memorials to appreciate the freedom of our daily lives. We journeyed through the museums that clearly depict the conflicts, trends, and movements that have changed the history of America. And finally, we saw the official doctrines of the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution that define the beliefs and values that founded this great nation. As we experienced DC, we learned that many American leaders had an impact on the United States that did not stop with their generation, but lived on for centuries. By the last day of the youth tour, we gained leadership wisdom and demonstrated a passion for America that would have seemed unimaginable before the trip. With this passion, I even expanded my American apparel with the newly bought American flag bucket hat and bow tie, and some even red, white, and blue socks for when I'm feeling extra crazy. Furthermore, the students on the Washington Youth Tour were incredible. But what was the impact when we met each other? When we shared the stories and experiences that defined us? The first person I met on the trip, other than the Jackson EMC delegates, was a young man named Connor Poole. Now, I came up to Connor right after I got up to the hotel. I expected to learn his name and move on. But what I didn't realize was that he would later become one of my best friends. But I'll get to that later. When thinking back about the youth tour last summer, the only word that could exactly pinpoint the impact of the trip was boldness. It was the boldness of talking to people that wake up in the morning and make it their goal to put a smile on someone else's face. But also, the boldness was taking time to learn someone's favorite joke or their favorite dance move. But these leaders of tomorrow are going to change the nation by changing the culture in which they live in. Whether it's for a week in D.C. or for years within their local electric cooperative. During the tour, the delegates even represented the basic ideals and principles of electric cooperatives today, as they weren't concerned with their own needs and listened to the stories of others. Around 9 p.m. one night of the trip, I was told I was a finalist for the NRECA Youth Leadership Council Georgia representative. I had to prepare a 2-minute speech that night to give the following morning. As I worried and wrote notes and worried some more, my other Jackson EMC delegates, Kirsten, Kristen, and Emily, showed me comfort and helped me brainstorm ideas. They literally stayed on the phone for hours, helping me with ideas to the point where they finally fell asleep, as they knew my speech was going to be all right. Ladies and gentlemen, this simple example of people serving each other shows how the future of true American leadership is born in Washington, D.C. every year on the youth tour. A future where the powerful are held accountable and people greet each other with genuine positivity. A future where discipline and passion are used to overcome the largest and most ruthless obstacles. And even a future where happiness and leadership are blended together to improve the lives of millions. Just over a week ago, I lost 2 close friends of mine in a car accident on the way to school. 2 close friends that were brothers of mine on the soccer field, leaders in the community, and individuals who always defied limitations. But after heaven gained those 2 angels, I learned of the most important leadership and life lesson. And that is to treat everyone with love and respect, because you never know which moment is your last. At that moment, I reflected back on the people I met on the youth tour, and everything seemed to come full circle. I finally realized why the young adults I met on the youth tour have the ability to stand so brightly in an unclear world. It is because they understand what this lesson means. They understand to be thankful for all of their days because they have the opportunity to change others' lives. They don't see age as a prerequisite for making a difference in their community. These young leaders are here on earth for a reason that I may never exactly know, but I do know they changed my life. Now, Connor taught me 2 words on this trip that will stay with me forever. These 2 words were super coolin'. Not super cool, not super cooling, but super coolin', an adjective. Connor told me these words when I was about to give that same speech I'd prepared the night before with my Jackson EMC delegates. He told me, just be super coolin', Chris. Everything will be all right. I later learned what he meant by super coolin'. It was that no matter how nervous or mad or happy or glad you are, living super coolin' keeps your heart in the right place and keeps your head on straight. Being super coolin' allows success never to be final, yet allows failure never to be fatal. Today, I'm closer to Connor than almost all my friends in my hometown at Aquila. And ever since the youth tour, Connor and I call each other almost every week to ensure each other is super coolin'. As a result of the 2015 Washington Youth Tour, 1,700 delegates are now prepared to impact the expectations of the future, to overcome the difficulties that lie ahead, and to achieve today what they could not yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here today to present to you another Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King Jr., or George Washington, because there will never be another great emancipator, or a man that inspires thousands through an I Have a Dream speech, or even a first president of the United States. But don't think for 1 second that the boldness of these American heroes is of a time that has come and gone. Why? Because the students that I met on the Washington Youth Tour had the leadership skills and capabilities that change a whole nation through the culture they share and the joy they create. They will continue to spread light through miles of darkness and find hope through loads of despair. Their boldness will never be a question of their character. So furthermore, I present to you the future of America and the promises of tomorrow. That the 2015 Washington Youth Tour delegates will not be Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, or George Washington, but their own motivation to change the world the best that they can. Thank you.